You're live.
Hey, welcome to High Fives and Deep Dives. I'm your host, Blake. You should know that by now. I've been here a few times. I've got a couple of buddies with me today. Got Aaron Ruggiere and Bobby Doherty, both local musicians who you can see. Bobby plays with East Texas Logging Company. Debut show coming up
Yeah, April 24th.
April 24th. And then Aaron plays with anyone he can, it seems. You can hear him on Pleasure Thinking Music. As much as he wanted to promote that, he didn't mention it. He's also my personal band leader in Twig Eaters.
Absolutely.
Plays keyboards for Captain Moon and the Silver Spoons. All worth checking out. And we're here to talk about Fear Before the March of Flames.
Yeah.
So this was an interesting episode to do because I threw you guys an album that I'm assuming you'd never heard at all.
Never.
Not even heard of this band.
Which is perfectly reasonable to not have heard of a band that broke up 15 years ago. This was a big gateway album for me. It came out in 2006. I had graduated high school. I had started to kind of venture into heavier music. And then went to see a show for a band, and Fear Before the March of Flames opened, and it was one of the wildest shows I've seen. There was an injury and an ambulance involved.
Sick.
It was crazy. So from that point, I said, I got to get into this band. So
You saw blood and you're like,
Yeah. Naturally.
I watched the singer get his face cut open with a bass headstock.
Jeez.
In a pretty wild moment. He finished 4 more songs and then was like, hey, I have to go get stitches now.
Jeez.
Understandable.
So, and that singer was a guy named David Marion, who's the lead singer, screamy, shouty guy that you've heard all over this record that you've listened to for the first time now. So, 2006, they released this record. It doesn't sound anything like their first 2 records that I had seen the tour for previously. It's experimental. There's weird textures and a lot more keyboards, and everything's just kind of amped to 10. And I fell in love with it. This led me down some paths to more experimental music that got noisier and less listenable that we won't cover on this show. But, I wanted you guys to listen to it. I want to get some initial thoughts from you before we really kind of get in track by track and figure out. So I'll start with you, Aaron. Overall thoughts. How did you feel?
Overall thoughts. Well, this is an interesting choice for me to listen to, just because I've almost never. This might be my first in the genre full listen through an entire album of this. So I'm definitely coming at it from a very, very outside perspective. And like the screaming sort of thing is not something I would usually go out of my way to listen for. But this record kind of, I wouldn't say flipped my perspective, but it definitely, there's those 2 different voices. I guess there's the guitarist is also the vocalist.
We could. I'll cover some musicians in a moment.
But yeah, so those 2 kind of separate voices really stood out to me as just being very important in their own textures and timbres.
Absolutely.
And yeah, super, like you were saying, experimental. Like I was hearing a bunch of different songs remind me of different things like that don't have any relation to each other whatsoever. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about that.
Yeah. No, I threw it at you because I knew you weren't into the hardcore, screamy, thrashy guitars thing, but I thought there were tidbits that I think you would latch onto.
Oh, for sure.
So, Bobby, you're a metal guy.
Yeah,
So
I'm very into this screamy, thrashy.
I thought you would appreciate the post-hardcore, metalcore-esque things that they had going on.
Yeah.
So hit me with your initial thoughts.
Yeah, so like I have been really into like the whole post-hardcore thing, like the early 2000s kind of stuff. Like, Dance Gavin Dance, Chiodos at the Drive-In, kind of stuff like that. But as, getting into this record, it was kind of clear that like I knew that stuff just enough to know that this record is like pretty different. You know, it's
absolutely
very, very out there. And I feel like we're gonna say out there a lot.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, the textures in it, and you know, I like a lot of intense music myself, and I think like the intensity with this one is not just being in loud and aggressive and the swan chord tapping and mathy kind of stuff. The intensity is in like the crafting and like the dynamic and textures of ins and outs and exposed moments as much as there are anthemic, you know, loud sections, literally screamed anthem kind of stuff. So it's been really cool. You know, the instrumentation is really rad. It's really out there. I'm not a biggest fan of like synthy kind of stuff, but I think they did it in like a really like cohesive, like really cool way. So yeah, the textures and the instrumentation was really cool to like dig into and listen with good headphones and really loud.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's really fun.
Definitely good to listen to loud. For sure. So the album is The Always Open Mouth. It's the third record from Fear Before the March of Flames. They had released two kind of back to back in 2003 and 2004. So they toured pretty extensively with bands like Chiodos, Dance Gavin Dance.
Yeah.
They also played with bands like Botch and Converge.
Oh, rad.
Which there's a lot of elements in their first two albums that are more akin to the metalcore side of post-hardcore. And then this album releases 2 years after their second album, and it is completely different from anything they've done. You have David Marion, who is I say screaming vocalist. They both scream. They both sing. Up until this point, David Marion had been the primary vocalist you heard. Okay. Then you have Adam Fisher, who plays lead guitar, plays all the keyboards on this album,
rad,
which he hadn't done previously. He's also the clean vocalist on the first two records, but they really share roles, like Aaron had mentioned, on this record a ton. They brought in a guitar player named Zach Hutchings to play rhythm guitar. He had come from the school of the Kurt Ballou Converge big, heavy guitar thing, as opposed to the punkier elements that they kind of presented initially. They've got Michael Madruga on bass. He's the guy who whipped the bass into David Marion's face and cut it open at the show I saw. Nice. And then a guy named Brandon Proff on drums, and he did a lot of the electronic drum programming that comes up through this album a fair bit. So the album overall really kind of tackled some big subjects, where previously it was songs about girls and whatever metalcore, post-hardcore bands were writing about. This album really tackles a lot of religion. It tackles a lot of consumerism. And a big one that it tackled that was kind of controversial at the time is a lot of like big pharma feeding drugs to kids, mostly. So that comes up a fair bit. 15 tracks, which seems excessive by today's standards, for sure. A lot of them are really short. Yeah. Some interludes.
Digestible.
The album clicks in at about 46 minutes total. Right. So not terribly unreasonable in the grand scheme of things. I think it starts off with a song called Absolute Future. And it is, I think, an incredible way to start an album. Aaron and I both have timestamps in the first 30 seconds, so I'm just going to have Hagen play it from the top. This is Absolute Future.
Hold on. First, McLeod said, I need an Instagram account called Drippy Blake where he just shows his fit before each episode. There's never been an episode where I wasn't jealous of his shirt.
I think I have 3 shirts that I've worn. But
Drippy Blake's pretty good.
There you go. You only
Halloween.
need 3 pictures.
Halloween, and they're all in various states of wear because I wear 3 or 4 shirts.
Okay, here's your start. Absolute Future.
Absolute Future. Real piano.
Yeah. My least favorite instrument.
Yeah. Already just noisy radio tuning sounds. tons of tension, super crunchy chords. All right.
Yeah.
So, for a band who had put out spastic hardcore
Yeah.
prior to this, you get David Marion whisper vocals,
It's like super exposed, like
Yeah.
right off the get go.
super raw.
Yeah, my first note that I was going to make for all of these was this first song, and it was going to be "Speak Up." But then the next song started, so I erased that.
Yeah, never mind. Coming through loud and clear.
Yeah.
So the next song was actually what they opened with at the show. This was pre-release of the album.
Oh, sick.
So they played a couple of new songs at the time. And again, Aaron and I both have timestamps in the first 30 seconds. Bobby does as well.
Yeah.
So this was to be a little harder to talk over,
Yeah.
as we'll hear momentarily. But yeah, Hagen, if you can give us the first minute. Big crunchy guitars. And that's how David Marion had sounded for 2 albums.
Yeah. So sick.
So we'll get Adam Fisher on the top vocal. Yeah, so that's the dual vocal hits right off the bat, and their textures are super different.
Oh, yeah.
Adam Fisher is the high-pitched voice that you hear through there. He'll also be the higher-pitched clean singing that we'll get into in a bit. But yeah, we hit all of our timestamps, save for mine. I've got a 2-minute, Hagen, if you'll get that ready in just a moment. But what were you guys digging in there? Your timestamps are pretty close together.
We're on the same.
Oh, yeah. Mine was at the beginning, just that weird riff to open that song with. I think I was saying this is the only song on the record that I actually counted mentally.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it was 5 plus 4, which is 9, and then it's 3 plus 6, which is also 9, or 3 plus 3 and 3, which is also 9. So, but to me, it doesn't necessarily sound like 9. It just sounds like, here's this new measure, here's this new time signature, here's this new time signature. And then once I finally locked into that, I was like, all right, when this comes back, I'm going to know exactly what happens. That never comes
And
back.
they never give it to you.
Never go back.
No, it's the slows down to what you expect from a 2006 post-hardcore.
Yeah,
Just
that-
sludgy, big.
That's what I picked, like the 21 seconds to like the 48 seconds of just like the slower, chuggier riff, chunkier kind of just mean guitar stuff. I picked that one and I put on here like what I thought this record was going to be, and in parentheses MySpace. like that's what I was kind of expecting from a post-hardcore record from 2006.
Yeah.
But and we heard a little bit of it at the end of it, but it goes into like a more mature, developed kind of sound from there.
Yeah.
So it has that like raw aggression, that raw, just angry, loud part, and then it goes into more, and it's like, oh, this record is different.
Yeah. Aaron and I put, again, same timestamp here
Yeah.
at the 2-minute mark. So Hagen, if you'll hit that for us, please. Yeah, just big washy textures. There is a synth bass in there that
So sick.
just rattling everything.
That was my main timestamp reason. Just good use of synth bass there.
Yeah.
I think there might be a few spots on the record as a synth player that I was like, oh, that's a weird sound. I might not have used that, but that one in particular, I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's big rattly bass.
Yeah.
So we move out of that into a song called Mouth, which I believe, I should have written this down, has the lyric for the title of the album.
Yeah.
It's also just kind of a wild song with some cool electronic breaks in it. We've got, let's see, where's my timestamp? 1:30 is where we're going to start. Hagen, if you let me. So everything's washed out guitar.
Yeah.
There's some faint vocal in the back. David Marion just really going for it. Hear a lot of that. So from there, it looks like Bobby's got 239. I've got 215. So let's hit 215.
Yeah.
There's some electronics here that I like. Brandon Prost program drums, fuzzed out bass.
His drums sound great.
Yeah.
Just
And then I believe this is where Bobby's timestamp starts.
yeah.
So lyrically, this was kind of the first one to tackle. The always open mouth is the idea of people using their platform to just spew whatever garbage they're wanting to spew.
Yeah.
This is pretty early in the social media realm. 2006 is, I think, 2 years removed from Facebook existing. MySpace was kind of the platform, really, and already dealing with people spreading misinformation and just nonsense, and then having it to anybody that would listen.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what they tackle in the always constant braying of the always open mouth.
Yeah, the lyrics in this one particularly, I wrote, this was the one that I wrote the lyrics down on. It gets pretty not necessarily graphic, but chubby, disgusting infants in a giant damp crib, teething and in dire need of a mother's rum-soaked digit. And then the kind of the chanty, anything to numb, anything to encourage ignorance. And I picked that hook, the anthemic. This is to me, it's the most anthemic song on the record for sure. And the first hook is using huge hand gestures, trying to get a point across to the deaf and the blind. And then they switch it to, we're trying to speak clearly, but our voices get drowned out by the over-excessive braying and the always open mouth, which is it's a cool, it's still the same anthemic melody, but it develops as it goes, and it's using all this imagery, and it's just really cool. And it continues to kind of go in that same kind of vibe of, media bad later on in the record as well. But this one was the first one I'm like, dang, they're talking about it.
Yeah, not really holding back.
Not at all.
Track 4 is Taking Cassandra to the End of the World Party. This was the single from the album. There was a music video that played on Headbangers Ball, that sort of thing.
Killer.
It was, for a while, my favorite song on the record. Has since kind of switched around a few times. So I've got timestamps starting from the top. I love the groove.
Yeah.
And then we get some
Yeah.
just noisy guitar.
I think right there is where I can see why Blake likes this record. It's that right there.
Yeah. Then this noise is all over the place. Slide guitar. Just
Yeah.
so
Class.
So cool.
was pretty hooked. Like, oh, okay, you can do all kinds of things with the guitar and
Yeah.
not have to know how to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one for sure I thought was like this is how the synths should be done right. You know, not necessarily as like a lead melody or anything like that,
Yeah.
but just like as again, like crafting the texture, just getting that texture of this really weird experimental sound.
I heard somebody say it sounds sort of like circus music, and I definitely hear it when I think
that,
about
Yeah.
sort of that. But I love how the guitar starts everything, and then drums come in, and they don't really line up with the guitar,
Yeah.
and then the bass comes in, and it doesn't line up with either of those things really,
Yeah.
and it takes a bit to lock in,
For sure.
which is a pretty effective tool for an album that's meant to be sort of unsettling
Yeah.
overall.
Very.
Bobby's got a timestamp at 156.
Yeah, this one I think is the it's like a trim picked hook. This is like such a cool like climax to this again groovy track, and then it just goes into like pure like just energy intensity.
This is also it should be No One Listens to the Damned.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So it's the melody there, trim picked. So yeah, 156. Let's hear it.
It's almost like blackened into like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
really a lot of influences.
Yeah, very very black metal inspired through there.
It's cool. It's posty. It's just out there, which is it has such a cool like texture to it.
Yeah. So that was the single as much as you would have had a single.
I could see that song to me, like I didn't hear or I didn't do any research about this my first listen through, and so when I got to this song I was like, yeah, this sounds like it's 2006. Like I was transported back to like going to swim lessons with my parents and hearing like "Yeah" by Usher playing over the speakers. This was that song for me. So
Memories of 2006 are going to be interesting because I was
a little bit of an age gap there.
It turned 20
There you go.
that year.
There you
so,
go.
Can I ask you guys a
Teaching
question?
your own swim lessons.
Okay, I asked this question. You kind of touched on this kind of a little bit, but I think I know the answer for Blake for the most part. But Bobby and Aaron, did you guys have like an emo phase in your childhood?
For sure. Yeah.
Like-
Did not, no.
Yeah.
You sound so confident with that. Fuck you.
Yeah. Luckily, I think honestly, I've entered it in my adulthood. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But here I
There
am.
you go.
I like it.
Yeah, for sure. Mine was a little bit later, but it was like I guess third wave kind of stuff, like modern baseball, like Tiger's Jaw, stuff like that was like huge for me. But yeah, a little bit of an emo phase.
I got into emo phase being 2004, 2005, metalcore sort of things. I played in like Christian metalcore bands.
So sick.
in high school and right out of high school because that's the bands that were around.
Yeah.
So I got to this stuff through that filter.
Yeah.
So when you hear an album tackle religion, where everything had been very pro-religion, and then I hear this and I'm going, oh, okay, that is a different experience these guys are having
For sure.
with religion. So, tonally similar to bands like Norma Jean,
Yeah.
that sort of thing, but lyrically way more depth to me.
Oh yeah.
And that's again kind of where I locked into things. Like, okay, this isn't saccharine cookie cutter lyrically like everything else I had heard up to that point. But yeah, and I'm sure Hagen had an emo face.
Why do you say that so confidently? What do you mean by that?
because
What do you mean by that?
Because you're behind me and I can't see you make faces. So we're gonna move into a track that only I had timestamps for. And it's all because of some very bizarre guitar timing.
No.
The song's called 10 Seconds in Los Angeles. My timestamp is at 1:12.
So dry.
It's super dry, super behind the beat.
This bass way up here, like this.
Brandon Proft going off on the snare drum. Yeah, love it. So just, again, to have a super dry, super clean guitar sound, just try to drag you out of any groove that's been established.
For sure.
Is a big part of this album. Again, I think it's trying to unsettle you
Yeah.
all the time.
It works.
So, and it's a spooky album.
Yeah.
I get spooky to my core most of the time.
There you go.
So yeah, that was 10 Seconds in Los Angeles. Again, middle third of the album kind of thing. We're going to lead us into The Waiting Makes Me Curious, which there's a lot of really cool stuff happening. There's some cool harmony vocals that come up. I think our first timestamp is going to be Aaron's at the 30-second mark. So let's hear that and hear what Aaron's hearing.
Yeah, so well, tonally, like vibes wise, I was saying this sounds like Nirvana of their old like chunky stuff. Like I feel like I'm watching Robert Pattinson put on the eyeshadow.
Yeah.
Bluesy Tweed line.
But it is very bluesy, and that this verse, this melody, I think repeats the most in order out of anything on the record, at least so far. Which I mean, this is just kind of a not a lull, but a relaxing almost moment in the otherwise very aggressive
Got
record.
these harmonies.
So cool.
All by myself, I will leave it.
Adam Fisher is up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely it's a breather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Super cool tonally. And then at the 4 minute and 5 seconds mark, we get one of the cooler piano sounds in the mid 2000s, I think. If you want to hit that for me, Hagen, 405. Super dirty.
Yeah, it's hitting
Sounds
it.
like it's almost like bit crushed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wouldn't put it past them.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting, like reverb sound, almost gated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catches
Coming
itself.
back.
Yeah, that one for sure. I keep saying the word texture, but like that first section where it's just a lot of like cleaner guitars. Not necessarily this bendy MySpace riff. It's still incredibly sludgy and heavy, and there's this like melodic, like bluesy melody of the vocal line, and it's still just so just grungy and heavy and rad. And it's just cool that they can do, going back to, Mouth or Drown in the Old Hag. It's like, yeah, that's MySpace-y, whatever. But then you get this and it's like, man, this is still really heavy.
I think it has the most emo lyric on the album of just like I came into this world all by myself, I'll leave it.
Yeah. Crazy.
So, I got to have something sad in anything I play on this show. And that leads us into what is actually probably currently my favorite song on this record, which is High as a Horse. And some timestamps in a couple of spots. So let's take it from the top.
Yeah.
More of that weird timing guitar.
Yeah, this one totally just like is a complete 180 from what we've heard so far. Yeah. That's up here at the beginning.
No.
It's like no doubt.
We'll drop out for that guitar again.
It's back and forth, dude.
The programming that Brandon Proft did on the drums that he would then layer with his real drums adds some pretty cool elements that I think kind of got latched onto in later post-hardcore.
For sure.
That, would eventually, it's just full triggers of these sounds. But he did, I think, a great job, and Hagen can agree or disagree back there. I don't know how much he was listening to it. But, it's super rad texturally to have the layers of drums happening like that.
Since you brought me in, I'll give an opinion. No, I think the drums sound great. I think the thing that I'm definitely, as Blake said, very, very emo scene kid, still am. And something I pick up from listening to this is I listen to this kind of stuff and I'm like, man, every emo band and scene band had their thing that made them different from the other one. Well, not every, but the best ones did, right?
Sure.
I think about Bobby mentioned Chiodos earlier, and they were really good at we got a bunch of strings and orchestra stuff. And Enter Shikari was one of those bands that was we did dubstep first in this, we added dubstep in this, and these guys are do you like noise music and synths? Because a lot of them had synths, but not in this way. It was more very bright synth melodies on top of these kind of very, now we could say cheesy, but it's not a bad thing, but for lack of a better term, cheesy riffs, right? You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
So I think the drums sound incredible, but for me, it's just that thing that gives them the edge over the other bands, or that gives them that special twist, Yeah,
I think by 2008 you get Attack Attack, which is dance music, synths.
Yeah, I think that's a weird one for me. I don't really I like the dance music, hardcore stuff is I'm a little bit lost in parts of that. To give an extreme example, they're not a hardcore band, but they were part of the scene 303. They were for all intents and purposes a scene band, but they wrote dance music for people. It was a very strange thing that stuck out, where this is hey, do you like textures? Do you like noise? Guess what?
So a really interesting thing to note, since you bring up 303, they are from the same area as Fear Before the March of Flames.
I thought you were going to call me a hoe.
I trust you for the most part. But yeah, from the greater Denver music scene.
Yeah.
So
and bringing up Attack Attack is again, that was when I was getting into post-hardcore kind of stuff, or at least that was the stuff that was really popular when I was getting into music in general. And that kind of stuff, again, I was never the biggest fan of it, because you're right, it's really bright, dancey, dance-inspired melodies, versus having it serve a bigger purpose in the context of this kind of stuff is a lot more my speed, I should say. It's this very
textural over taking the center role.
For sure.
Aaron's got a timestamp at 57 seconds, so let's hit that and see what we're working with.
The crazy timbre changes in their voices,
Yeah.
just back and forth. Yeah,
It's just assaulting.
yeah,
Just
it made me really
super-
appreciate the different timbres and different voices. That's it, really.
Yeah, so that actually leads into, and if we can play, we'll hit the same spot. That hits my favorite lyrics on the album because they get super, super pointed. If you'll play it, and then I'll let you know what we're working with there.
Oh, straight where you were?
Yeah, just back it up, say 10 seconds. Yeah, so that lyric there is they fill our mouths with sugar-coated shit because there's no need to talk when we have medicine. And there's a cure for every fucked up thought, and there's a pill for every fucked up child. Just pretty
That's
heavy.
what he's saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and that lyric is buried in that mix.
Oh yeah.
Like he's super far back. But yeah, this was sort of them saying, I mean, it's not high as a horse. This was a high as a horse.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm moving ahead faster than I'm thinking. Just keep them medicated. Right? You don't get thoughts, and
Yeah.
everything's just got to be placated and kept down. And keep them high as a horse.
There you go.
Talking about those different vocal timbres, Aaron, that you were saying at the end of that clip, I guess when they were yelling all of those super intense lyrics, you basically got screaming harmony.
Yeah.
Like you get like
Yeah.
because they don't clash with each other. The timbres are great, but it feels like a vocal harmony, like locking in with each other. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating use of that in this era, all of these bands had two singers. It
Sure.
seemed
Yeah.
So we move into Dog Sized Bird, which is a very electronic kind of thing happening. I've got a timestamp at the top. Aaron's got one about a minute and a half into it. So let's take it from the top, and we'll just kind of roll through it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I love the way Brandon Proff transitions out of the program drums. And again, it's the noisiest.
Yeah. So
And that's all just screaming guitar feedback. That is my speed for sure.
Sounds like Blake was on this record.
yeah, the hand hard telephone vocals, so cool.
Super processed vocal,
Yeah.
crunch down and so again, real drums and program drums concurrently.
This year it's the same vocalist on your side.
Yeah, he's just doubled up.
Yeah, and I guess this is where my timestamp starts.
Yeah.
And this is before I realized that these were all programmed, but my note here says, I too like to record the beats that my printer makes. It is true. I actually I did that yesterday.
There you go.
like when you get just like a copy of like 30 copies of the same thing.
Yeah, it gets a little groove going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
So a ton of texture.
Yeah.
And we're a little over halfway through, and we're gonna run into complete and utter confusion.
Just real quick, Rosie said a dog-sized bird is way scarier than a bird-sized dog.
I would agree with that.
I've had chihuahuas, and they're terrifying
In their
little,
own right,
little
yeah.
creatures.
Also agree, yeah.
And that is the first lyric. I'm a dog-sized bird.
Killer.
Oh, before this one even starts, I just want to say about the very first notes. Speaking because the song is about the title at least is about confusion, and so one of my favorite like songwriting tools is starting a song with like a riff or a hook that doesn't start on beat one.
Yeah.
So when you start to listen to it, you're like, all right, here's beat one, and then the drums come in, and you're like, oh, where am I now?
Yep.
And,
Just disorients you.
Yeah, and so it does that here, which I think really lends itself to the theme of the song.
Yeah. So we'll take this from the top.
Even then, like, I was like, where am I? I've heard this like 5 times now.
Yeah, that was my note is what's happening. Here we can get a groove happening, but it takes that long.
You go with the synth. It's not in the front.
Yeah.
It's way back.
So you get a really cool double between the vocal melody and the guitar, which is fun to watch live because Adam Fisher plays and sings.
Oh, dude.
So he's playing that part. That's the closest lead synth we get.
Yeah, my note here is that this sounds exactly like Cake
Cake.
because of the telephone vocal and the signed synth. This is just like this is straight up Cake.
You're so right.
I would never have put that together, but as soon as you say it, that's Cake all day.
I love Cake.
Which, yeah. Sorry, Hagen.
I didn't say shit. I didn't open my fucking mouth. I kept it shut. I didn't say anything, all
I
right?
just need to add a vibra slap.
Yeah.
I think Complete and Utter Confusion is a great way to title that because it starts with a heart monitor beep that is not in time with the guitar that comes in. It is not in time with the drums that are not in time with the vocals.
Yep.
So, Complete and Utter Confusion. Not my favorite song on the record, but it does a great job of setting up as a result of signals being crossed, which is, we've got some timestamps here. I've got the 57-second mark, so we'll start there and kind of run through. I've got a piano vocal melody.
Yeah. I noticed this was similar to the last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of tune piano, even.
Yeah.
You can't keep God off the radio.
Tremolo lead guitar, just like post rock, like it's super.
Adam Fisher's high harmonies.
Yeah.
There's always a salesman at the front door. The church is trying to peddle something much worse. What you see and what you believe are never gonna be the same.
All right, then our next timestamp is 158. I don't know how close we are to that.
We're on it.
There we go.
Okay.
So
Heavy
Yeah.
stuff.
We talked a little bit earlier about, you know, like almost like distorted vocal like harmony, like just
Yeah.
kind of using it in that way. Again, like my post rock introduction was Dance Gavin Dance, you know,
Yeah.
so like getting in that, it's very John Mess, and at the time it was Tillian. Or if you go back, look at Johnny Craig or Kurt Travis, you know, it was very one and the other, very, you know, clean vocals, bluesy kind of line, and then the scream vocals are doing, you know, again, more of like an ice picky kind of
Yeah.
stabs kind of deal. And this one, this one I wrote in here, it's very Dance Gavin Dance-esque in that way, where they're using it in that kind of double threat, like just back and forth on it, versus the harmonies that we saw earlier. That, you know, I thought it was done in a cool, really texturally different way than where we've seen it kind of elsewhere.
Yeah. It's a cool tune.
Yeah.
We'll roll into track 11 here, which is there's a guest vocalist. That's always fun to have.
Yeah.
But we're not going to start there. This is My Fucking Deer Hunter.
There you go.
And we're going to start right at the top, just because the processed vocals in this song are wild sounding.
Yeah, so it starts off with this like Tom York ass beat.
Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah, it's very floppy arms
yeah.
sounding.
But yeah, the vocoder is wild.
Yeah. Adam Fisher playing mini chord, micro chord
Interesting.
vocoder.
It almost sounds kind of like off, like out of tune.
The mix on this album is driving me insane.
That's fair.
It's like, is it loud? Is it quiet? Is my shit broken? I don't know.
I thought it was just me, so I'm glad.
No, it's definitely it's an element of
Yeah.
of the record for sure. Cool guitars, and then we're gonna get a really cool program drum to real drum moment coming up. Back to some formant, processed vocal. So big heavy lyrically, the song is fascinating because the vocoder vocal is telling the story of a creature that's going through the process of evolution, and then the clean vocal that comes in is a creationist take of the lyrics. Where did the fins go? What are these arms for? This is how we are. It's never been that way.
Yeah.
And then the screaming vocal that comes in is there's a wall out past the shallow water where there's God and all his faithful followers searching for the taste of copper. Just like trying to get blood in their mouths.
Yeah.
And just really a juxtaposition of here's what's happening, here's a group that's denying it, and then we're stuck in the middle of this. And then at the 2-minute mark, we get our guest vocalist. Let me make sure I've got that. Yeah, 2:02. We got our guest vocalist, Anthony Green, from
Mr. Anthony Green.
at the time, I think the first Circa Survive record was out. He had been in Sayison. And he plays the character as he introduces himself. I'm a shark with legs and a tie.
Fire.
So yeah, let's hit to 2 minutes. It's such a gnarly bass tone.
Yeah. Post rock guitar with GNT almost bass in the bottom.
Just the edge.
Yeah, we'll go with that, I guess.
also guest guitarist.
Did I write down the wrong timestamp?
Mine was right at 202.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna get the dropout, and then it hits it. So that was my first real taste of Anthony Green as a vocalist.
Great.
So I had not listened to much Seosin, and I didn't really get Circus Survive until the second album, a couple of years after this. And man, his vocal is up there.
Yeah.
And it's, again, pretty buried in the mix to have somebody come in and guest. But yeah, he's the blood they've been looking for.
There it is.
In that song. And that leads us into Lycanthropy, about being a werewolf. Yes, and all of
Classic.
my timestamps look to be pretty much at the top. So let's take it from there. More of your MySpace guitar.
Yeah. It's so cool. It's just so grabbing you by the shirt, but he's not screaming. You know.
Well, there's even whispering.
Yeah.
That was my note, is the whisper vocal.
Just still, again, it's the intensity of it. Just, it's not breakdowns. Oh, there it is.
I think it's the most intense song on the record.
Yeah.
I would agree.
It's pretty unrelenting.
There's almost no there's no tonal center
Yep.
whatsoever.
More just super processed vocals happening there. That's a super fast vibrato.
Yeah.
What a wild, fun song.
Yeah.
So I think those were the only timestamps we had there. Was pretty much from the top.
The tonal center thing is such a marker of this genre of just like panic chords and chugging and one is wherever they decide it to be, and it usually is just when the song's over and they want to strum all the strings open again. Yeah. That's like if you're thinking about where is the one chord, where is sometimes in the earlier song, where is beat one. I listen to these songs and I think there doesn't need to be a one chord. There doesn't need to be we can say there's a key to the song, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to matter as far as all this goes, because it's there's so much of those like I said, panic chords was a lot of bends or just tritones left and right out of that shit. It's super interesting to look into, but if you're trying to find a way to make any sort of analysis sense of it and go, how does this chord function? It doesn't. Move on.
I will say, I think this album in particular doesn't fall victim to what a lot of post-hardcore bands would end up doing, which is your one chord is whatever the lowest string of the guitar is tuned to.
For sure.
Yeah, and I just kind of bring that up because so far, at least, that hasn't happened in the record, at least for the whole song.
No.
So that one, again, yeah, you're right, is quite driving, scary.
Yeah.
Scary.
Scary. It's about
Werewolves.
Yeah.
And then the next track we've got is, I didn't even write down this full title because I believe it is a brief tutorial in Bacchanalia.
Yeah, couldn't spell
Cigarettes
that.
as currency.
Yeah. So timestamps here, I've got from kind of the 35-second mark. And that will encompass everything. So my big note is how much this is about to just pull you underwater. We rolled through Aaron's timestamp there.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was just about the tempo change there.
No.
I guess our first gradual slowdown there in the record. I'm personally, and again, this is just me being an outsider from the genre, but I never really am excited by a tempo change. I usually find them to be kind of gimmicky most of the time. But this one I feel is fitting for the genre and for the record that's it's a part of. So
For sure.
Yeah, I think, again, sort of a trope of the genre would be to pull this to halftime.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
And I feel like this just doesn't give you that satisfaction.
Yeah, it doesn't slow like all the way down. It just kind of
Everything, like I said, it just kind of drags you back.
Yeah.
And I think it's just more effective to me than just
Yeah.
let's cut the tempo in half and
For sure. Yeah.
power our way through it.
totally.
Yeah, with all of the different, again, textures
Yeah.
we see, there's so many tritone power chord, panic chord breakdowns and leads and just trim picked and screams and just double screams and intense, and then there's also these so exposed, spacey, out there things, and to make it work, and not just over the course of the album, but in one song, to just make it work back and forth. I think that really is props to them for getting it right.
Yeah.
Because that's not easy to get.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move into A Gift for Fiction, which we have some timestamps that are right at the top. So Aaron, what do you got going right at the top of A Gift for Fiction? And is it the same thing I have going?
My note here says it starts off my favorite way with a Wally feature and then a bunch of screaming.
Okay, Hagen, this is the one I threatened you with to count. So yeah, this intro is all over the place.
Cool.
So let's hear A Gift for Fiction.
There's Wally.
Yeah. So any thoughts on the count there? I couldn't.
Are you
figure.
asking me?
I can't count. I don't know how to tell anyone this any more than I already do. I don't know what's happened there.
There's the way that I probably would count it. I'd have to listen to it again, but I'd count it as roughly 2 bars of 4, and then you can keep counting in 4 probably, but it's there's triplet accents. But I would probably end up counting it in a triple meter during that section.
Okay.
So it's I would classify that ultimately more as a feel change than a full time change. Mm-hmm. But you could write it out however you want to and count it however you want to, but it's more of that feel change switches to those triplet accents versus just playing straight up punk.
Or my counter argument,
No.
do what I would do and just panic the whole time it's happening, and hope you end up where you're supposed to.
That's what music
So-
is, right?
Just what's happening? I don't know. I don't
Stressful.
know. Here we go.
Incredibly
And-
stressful.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll do something else now. I have a timestamp at 1:30, and I just wrote noise because that's what I do. So let's hear 1:30. There's also some gang vocals.
My favorite.
Just noise.
Awesome.
I love it.
Yeah.
Anytime I can just hear somebody that seems capable on their instrument sound like they're not, I'm here for it every time. So we're gonna roll up to the final track here, which is Absolute Past. So my timestamps are 1:45, just kind of all the way out. Aaron's got a timestamp at 2 minutes. So let's hit 1:45. Aaron, if you'll just kind of hit what you've got there. My big thought here is we return to the overall theme that they set up in Absolute Future and just wraps everything up. And then there's a very cool a cappella ending to this album that I like a lot. So let's hit 1:45.
Yes, throughout this whole song, there's this like stomping in the background as well.
Almost like marching.
Yeah, military sort of sound. Like a group.
In the vein of unease, everything will not be made right.
Yep.
And these are the same. This is the same melody and same
Yep.
lyrics as the first track as well, right?
If you listen to this on repeat, it just rolls into itself.
Crazy.
Sick.
So get big, and then the 3-minute mark, we'll get sort of the acapella thing of just David Marion again, raw. It's the same sort of idea that they present from the top. Would be curious to know if they wrote that together.
Yeah.
Everything will not be made right.
Yeah.
Killer.
We almost got on the bright side. You could choke from the from the first album. So that's the Always Open Mouth, 2006, Equal Vision Records.
Sweet record.
The album that sort of got me into experimental, weirder music.
Yeah.
So any closing thoughts? Anything you loved, you hated?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many like influences of post rock and
Yep.
classic post hardcore kind of stuff. Well, we now know it was classic, but there's punky parts, there's metalcore parts, there's blackened parts, and to make that and we've talked about the intensity of screams and panic chords and exposed and whispered vocals, just to make all of that happen in one big melting pot of a record is just, I thought it was really masterfully done as far as, production sense, just really, really cohesive in a very uneasy record.
Yeah, puts you in some places.
Yeah.
Aaron, you're kind of the bigger thought that I want to get from you is being someone who's not in the metal scene, never really has been. What's your big takeaway? Is it something you would be interested in further from bands like this, or
Yeah. I mean, a few years ago, story time. A few years ago, Cody Cantu of Sexual Jeremy fame He said one time that it's a lot easier to find things you hate about a song than it is to find things you like about a song.
Sure.
And I think that kind of applies not just to music even, but just art or life in general. So I try, ever since then, I've tried to do exactly that. And so I think this was a good experiment for me, working on that muscle, because like we've said, I normally would not choose to listen to a record like this, but it was cool to finally listen to it and hear all these other elements of things that I am used to
Sure.
showing up. And so I was exposed to things I haven't heard before, but in a way that felt natural or familiar.
Yeah. I think you and I have kind of a shared love of dissonance. And this is kind of where that started for me. Like there's a lot happening here that's dissonant, but not for the sake of dissonance. It really works to provide a texture in a bigger picture rather than, like you said, like panic chords and which I love. But if you can play those tritones and just things that clash and rub, and then add things to it, and just go, oh, okay, so it's moving somewhere, not for the sake of just being panicky. Yeah. So, yeah, one of my favorite albums. I'm glad you guys came and listened to it.
Thanks so much for having us.
And
man.
had thoughts. Yeah, I'm. Love to have you guys back. We'll talk about some more weird music that I like.
I'll be here.
We've got again, Bobby's playing with East Texas Logging Company April 24th. I think producer Hagen may or may not be there for that show.
Yes.
Yes.
I would hope his band is playing. It would be weird to not show up, but I guess I could play drums. I don't know the songs, but
It'll be a lot of fun.
You gotta play.
Take a crack at it. Aaron's got Twig Eaters and Captain Moon and the Silver Spoons. You can find all that on social media.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap this up. Hagen, you got any final thoughts back there? You want to get us out of here?
Yes. From what I heard of this album, it's a cool album. That's my final thought. And Colin also said in the chat, consonant dissonance.
There you go.
I mean, I think the big thing for me with this kind of like with the kind of dissonance, there's different ways to approach dissonance with this kind of music, and I think that this band did really a good job, from what I've heard, doing it more than just the one way, just the one way of the panic chords or the tritones or just the tension and release or the heaviness. There's so many other things they did to reach that point. And I think that's an incredibly impressive thing for a band like that. So
For sure.
I don't know if I'm going to listen to the album, but from what I heard, it's good.
That's fair.
It's hard for me to sometimes listen to those bands if I wasn't like into them at that age, because it's like it doesn't like hit the nostalgia the same way.
Sure.
But regardless, for those who aren't familiar with that kind of music, this seems like a great entry point in general to a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
I would recommend for sure.
Thank you guys for watching. This has been Blake's Deep Dive. We appreciate you so much. If you haven't already, please follow, subscribe, whatever platform you're watching this on. If you're on social media, find us. Instagram, dftapodcast.com. Oh, nope, that's the wrong thing. DFTA Podcast on Instagram, Doherty the Artist on TikTok. Follow, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We'll be live on Wednesday, Friday, like normal this upcoming week. Thank you guys so much. I didn't do this before, but here you go.
Okay.
There it is.
All right. Bye.
Thanks. Get us out of here.